Before we watched TV shows and movies on Narcos, and even before Pablo Escobar's rise to fame, there was one man who was the ultimate narco. He lived the narco life of greed, money, and power, but found a way to reclaim his life and use his astonishing experiences to empower others to live a life of hope, meaning, and redemption. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast, where Dr. Jorge Valdes shares his journey through life before and after the Medellin Drug Cartel, from torture and multiple prison sentences to how he refocused his life onto a path of principles learned as a narco. It's time to share that raw truth with you, right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast, with your host, Dr. Jorge Valdes.
Today on the Narco Mindset Podcast. And I heard this voice that was saying, snap it, kill him. So we bring about change through unity and protest. And I asked myself, where the hell were you when Kaepernick, all he did was take a knee in protest? How many of you were marching for that man? But we united together as one, and we helped each other. And when one of them succeeded, we all succeeded. Congress changed the laws to make sure the minorities would become the majority of the prison system. We became an inventory. Rehabilitation was not in nobody's mind. And the prison are full of young kids, 16, 17, 18, with a life sentence who are not criminal. Welcome to the Narco Mindset Podcast. My name is Jorge Valdes. I am your host, and I will be with you for the next few minutes or long minutes or 30 minutes, an hour. Anyways, it's been quite a challenging 2 weeks. My family and I moved from where we lived up North Florida, and I did not realize just how difficult and challenging moving is when you're 64 years old and suffer from a severe case of OCD. It's impossible to go to bed if you have 300 boxes full of contents inside your house. My wife always complains about that. What is wrong with me? And I tell her, well, that's the way God created me. So if you have a problem, take it up with God. You know, I have been really wrestling with the fact of making this podcast, wrestling with the fact of what do I say that I don't come off in a way where I diminish the pain, I ignore what's going on, or I augment the situation, or even hurt somebody. The truth of the matter is that we live in a world that no matter what we believe, there's going to be 50% of the population that's going to like it, and there's 50% of the population that's not going to like it. There's 50% of the people that are going to love us, 50% of the people that are going to hate us. But as we all witness the brutal, talk about brutal, honestly, it's almost demonic. When I looked at that man's face and I saw him really putting his knee on that man's throat, and look at the camera and know that he was being filmed. Know that it was going to show up in every social media, knowing that there was going to be serious consequences for what he did. And it almost seemed to me, honestly, like he was possessed. Look carefully at his eyes and see the look in his eye. And it's a look that I don't care. I hate. I hate you. I hate this man. I hate everybody. You know, a person that abuses another person is not the first time that they have done that. And I looked at it and I said, what is our world coming to that people can hurt other people's and not even really care if anybody ever finds out about it or if anybody's filming it or even what the consequences over are. That's why, to me, honestly, I would venture to say the man was seriously possessed. And I'm not a person that goes around saying, seeing demons everywhere or anything like that. But I do know that darkness is real. I saw it. I was in a prison in Alabama where I felt was like the devil right there in front of me. It was 4 cells on the top with 8 men, 4 cells on the bottom with another 8 men. And we rotated. When lockdown came, then each cell with 2 men would have the responsibility of cleaning the entire, what they call a pot. It was actually almost like, if you can think of an apple pie and you take a slice of it, and if you think in the middle of that apple pie in a circular manner, it's a control center that sees into all the different pieces of that apple pie. That's how that prison was created. So that night, it was our time to clean ourselves. So immediately, of course, the first thing that happens is when it is your turn, you clean yourself first, right? Because we only get 1 bucket of water And by the time we've cleaned 3 cells, the rest of the cells are just spreading dirty water. So we get the mop and the broom, and I tell my roommate I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start mopping our cell, and then I'm going to come out. And suddenly, as I went upstairs and I started mopping my cell, I heard this noise, and my gut reaction was to stick, the mop stick, to stick it out and make sure that my cell was not locked in. And sure enough, 2 other inmates somehow had made sure that their cell was not totally locked when lockdown came. And the minute that the guard went out into the control center and we started cleaning, they came out and they went after my roommate. Now, he had just been foolish, talking a bunch of garbage, like most people that are in prison have no time to do anything else. And they came and they were literally, one of them was trying to lock me in, and then the other one was literally trying to throw this young man over the railing so that he would die. And as I stuck out the stick, I came out running. When that other inmate saw that he could not lock me in, he went to help his friend to see if they could throw him over before I got there. But by the time I got there, they had not thrown him over yet. And I grabbed that inmate by the neck, and I had him in a position that I could snap his neck very easily. And I heard this voice that was saying, snap it, kill him, kill him, kill him. And it was crazy because there was a part of me that was saying, hold yourself until the guard comes. And I was screaming for the guard because they had a microphone inside each of the pods so the control center could hear it. I was screaming for the guard to come and help me so I didn't kill this man. And the truth is, it could have easily killed him. Ended up, instead of going home in the years I did, I would have ended up getting a life sentence. It would have been involuntary manslaughter, but it would have been manslaughter. I was just trying to do my time. And in that time, after that, I began to really, really pray and realize that it was a demonic experience because I heard a voice that I've never heard. Even when I gave my life to God and people say, oh, there's angels in heaven that celebrate when a repentant sinner changes his life. Well, I tell people those angels must not be Cubans because I didn't hear anything. And my life just went from bad to worse. But this time I was clearly hearing this. So I've seen that. And I saw the same look in that man's eyes as I've seen before. As I saw one time at Angola on Miguel Velez's face, the worst assassin the Medellin Cartel had, as I went to see him after he had been locked down. And suddenly he started foaming at the mouth and was mad at me and was like, don't come here anymore, and talking a voice that was not his. I've been his friend for many, many years. And I felt that day I was like right there in the presence of the devil, and I began to pray for the man. So those are my only 2 experiences where I felt that, hey, this was demonic. But I saw it that day in those pictures of that man killing him. But then what went on after that? So we began to protest. And then unfortunately, we did not peacefully protest because, as I've been telling a lot of people, the anxiety that existed in America, in many communities, because of what I call the lockdown, it was tremendous. And I said that the challenges of mental health, the drug overdoses that we're going to see as a result of people being locked down, is going to outweigh by far, far the many deaths that we are seeing of the COVID-19 virus. But, the thing is that as we look at all these different situations, we really, really never stop to realize that, there's just something bigger. Many people kept saying, we must worry about our health before the economy. And that's fine and dandy for me. I mean, when they talk about 2 months of quarantine, think about it. What the hell is 2 months of quarantine for me, who spent 10 years behind a 3x8 without a woman, without any bourbon, without Netflix? To me, it was just a piece of cake. As a matter of fact, that's what I do most of the time. I just stay home and write and talk like I'm talking to you today. So it didn't hurt me at all. And by God's grace, I'm financially well to the point that, I lost a lot of money in the market, but most people don't even have a dollar in the market. But the truth of the matter is no one's going to take my home. No one's going to take my car. We're going to have food. I ended up buying a cow, a young heifer, and I've got about 800 pounds of beef. I divided it with a friend of mine. So I have enough beef to last me for 2 or 3 pandemics. But to many people that live on a paycheck to paycheck, that have less than $400 in savings, that don't have enough money to fill a gas tank when a hurricane comes so they can leave town, to many, the lockdown was their health. And it was selfish for me to see many people that are really at serious risk, wanting those that were at minimum risk to be locked down with them. And listen, 1 death is too many for me, and I hurt for those people. But to me, this was one of the greatest crimes in humanity. Because, also as we saw many people in long-term facilities dying, old people dying by themselves, I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't give a shit how many freaking guards are at that door. If my mom and dad are dying, I'll be damned if they're going to die without me. I'm going to break in there. I don't care how many viruses I get. They're going to die with me holding their hand, So to me, that was horrific. Horrific. Old people screaming for their loved ones. And the best we could do is say, no, they couldn't come. We couldn't be creative and find a room in the facility where people could safely be with their loved ones. And this is horrific, what has gone on. And like I tell people, look, if you're afraid for your health, I respect that. Stay home. But don't force those that are not and that have to work. That mother that has to feed her child. 40% of single moms are raising children. That mother has to feed her child. All of a sudden they couldn't even go to work if she had a job because who the hell was going to take care of her child? Very, very, very difficult situation. So I saw the build-up anxiety in people. And I saw the mental health that's overtaking our country. Suicides tripled. Drug overdoses tripled. So I knew sooner or later, something was going to ignite that dynamite. Well, all it took is for this man to kill this African-American young man. And it's sad. And it's sad because now as a mother without a child doing the unthinkable. It is not humane. It's not natural law for a mother to have to bury her young child. But then what did we do? We took out to the streets and we burnt our communities. We burned establishments that had nothing to do with it. We burned Targets that are probably the nicest store in many of our communities. Now we want to blame every cop in the world for it. And listen, I am not here to diminish at all the abuse by police officer. But God, let's realize there are millions of men and women that leave. I know some that are damn good people that leave their house and might not see their family again to protect you and I. So yeah, there's some scumbags and there might be a bunch of scumbags out there, but so are they in the grocery stores and we don't stop going to the grocery stores. So the problem is exacerbated because when we act, and I'm not saying that it's justified or not justified. The oppression the people of color have received is horrific. I know that. I was a 10-year-old kid coming from Cuba in a country that half of the kids in our neighborhood were black, and we never saw a difference. And suddenly getting off the airplane as a 10-year-old kid and seeing signs that said, no Cubans, no animals, go back to Cuba. This is not Havana. And I told my dad, why they hate me? And then going to school and see girls laugh at me because I was poor and being called spick and being called son of a bitch. And to a Cuban, to be called a son of a bitch in America, many people use that word very lightly. But to me, it was fighting words. And we were very, very, very poor. And we looked poor. But we were decent human beings. But suddenly when we burn our community, what do we give those who have been hurting us, those who have been putting us down, those who don't like us, those who don't like the color of our skin? All we do is give them the reason to reinforce their belief. So we bring about change through unity and protest. But I look at all these athletes, African-American athletes, that have now, thank God, come forward for this movement. And I ask myself, where the hell were you when Kaepernick, all he did was take a knee in protest? How many of you were marching for that man whose life was destroyed? And that's not to diminish this situation at all. I know situations get in life to a boiling point where, we explode. But then again, I look at it and I say, why has it taken us so long? Why is Michael Jordan given $100 million now and didn't use $100 million years ago to fix our criminal justice system? That is the root of our problem. We can march till Jesus comes. Listen, this is for me. Okay? And you might agree, you might disagree. We're never going to stop people from hating other people because of the color of their skin. I don't give a shit how much we march. I don't give a shit if we burn the White House with the president inside. It's not going to change. We can go back to biblical times and realize that hatred is real. We can see Jews hating other Jews just because of what part of Palestine they came from. We saw Jews burning Jesus because they didn't like him calling himself the Messiah. So hatred among classes has been around forever. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't give a crap how much money we put. I don't give a crap how many corporations come forth, How many CEOs step down to have another CEO take his place of color? Listen, that's not going to change how the world looks at a person of color. Social injustice exists forever. Discrimination exists forever. Listen, in prison, Latinos discriminated against white people. African Americans discriminated against whites. Whites against black and Latino. Everybody. Unless Christ lives in your heart, everybody hates somebody. And that's sad because that's not how we were created. Hatefulness is a learned behavior. But as we see people now giving money, $100 million, and praise God that they are. I ask myself, where have they been all this time? This is not the first African American or person of color killed by a police officer. Where are we when 7,000 blacks kill 7,000 blacks? When thousands of Latinos kill thousands of Latinos? Why are we not marching for that? Black lives matter, no doubt about it. But so do Latino lives matter, and Asian lives matter, and white lives matter. All lives matter. Because all lives were created by an amazing God who created each and every one of us equal. Created us and looked at each and every one of us. I tell this to people. Even the worst rapist, the scum of the earth, when he was created or she was created, the murderer, whatever heinous crime any of them done, when they were created, I believe with all my heart, God looked upon them and said, it is good. I was looked upon as a horrific criminal one time. And now I'm looked upon as a respected doctor. People can change. But what is the problem that I find? Or where would I find the solution? Or not the solution, but the beginning of the solution. Number one, I looked at the Cuban American community in Miami when we came and we were despised. I mean, horrifically despised. And we came by the thousands, if not the millions. And Americans were afraid of us, rightfully so. They were afraid of losing their jobs. They were afraid of losing their culture, afraid of many, many things, of losing their language as they have. But there was one thing about my community, not because I'm Cuban, that I believe made the difference. Number one, we realized we were never going to let these people love us or even like us, but we could surely force them to respect us. But we united together as one, and we helped each other. And when one of them succeeded, we all succeeded. When one came from Cuba, he would go to someone's home and stay there for 3 months rent-free, even though that person was struggling financially. But then he would be able to save enough money to get his own apartment, his own house, and then that he would do it for another Cuban. And we did that. And my dad made us go to a dentist who was a dentist in Cuba, even though the sucker didn't have anesthesia. And his wife kept peddling that drill, but it was our dentist. And that's how we did it. We stuck together. So what do we do today? We people of color have power. We have money. And where I look at it and I begin to see the root of all this problem, it begins with criminal justice reform. In 1986, the laws were changed. Congress changed the laws to make sure the minorities would become the majority of the prison system. How so? Well, if you figure that it would take 5 grams of crack to get 5 years in federal prison, I think 5, it could be 10. Nonetheless, it would take 100 times more grams of powder to get the same sentence. Why? Well, because crack was cheap. It was available. It was usually bought by one gram. And it was in the minority communities where powder was more for the higher society. So it began. Then we had the 3-strike laws. And then Congress passed laws saying, we're going to make our community safer. Bullshit. What it became is we became an inventory. Rehabilitation was not in nobody's mind. So all of a sudden, they were locking us up. They were locking us up by the thousands and the thousands and the thousands. And we look at the prison population who, when I went in there in 1979, African Americans and Latinos combined were much less than the white population. Well, right now, the African American population is as big as the white population, prison population, and combined with the Latino, much bigger. So we see kids getting a life sentence for the 3 strikes. So they robbed a bike when they were little, and they ended up, being caught with a joint. And later on, they sold 10 joints or an ounce of pot. Now they get life because they're a 3-strike loser, and the prison are full of young kids, 16, 17, 18, with a life sentence who are not criminal. The prison system is full of young people of color who have mental health issues. I look at my grandchildren, and by God's grace, I've been given 5 amazing, beautiful grandchildren, and I look at them, and they're so healthy, and they're going to have every opportunity in the world. First thing my wife and I do is set up a college fund so their college is secured. Their parents work hard. They give them everything. We enjoy them. They're beautiful. They're happy. And in a sense, whenever I see them, I think about the many, many young men, young babies of color that are born in the neighborhood where their father might be in jail, their mother might be on crack, and they have absolutely no chance to survive. I looked at my life, and when I went to prison, I had no excuse. None at all. I had amazing parents who loved me, who gave me right morals, who taught me right, who educated me. I had an amazing future. In my freaking selfishness, I made choices seeking meaning in money that destroyed me and destroyed my parents and destroyed my brother who for 11 years, 10 plus years, drove every weekend to see me in a federal prison somewhere. So when I ended up in prison, I should have never ended up in there. But when I look at a lot of these kids, there was no other place they could have ended up because they are raised literally in a jungle. So they're raised in a jungle where then what is their number one choice? Well, I'm going to join a gang. Why? Because I need to belong. I have a hunger for someone to lead me, for someone to mold me, for someone to show they love me. So they're raised by a gang, they're raised by drug dealers, and eventually, their outcome is, a natural outcome is they're going to go to prison. And if they're older people calling to go to prison, then their children now have 80% chance of going to prison. Their wife has to go on welfare, the community is destroyed, the family is destroyed, and in the prison, they are not going to rehabilitate you. We had amazing programs at Tallahassee in 1979 that really, really showed that people could be rehabilitated. And let me tell you, you take those young people in prison today, as much of a hustler as they've been all their life, as much suffering as they have endured, you give them a chance, you show them that you care, that you love them, and it's unbelievable what they can do to change their community and change other young people from not following their path. No one wants to go to prison. No one. But many of our young people of color have no other chance. So again, I thank you for tuning into the podcast. So God bless you and see you next time on the Narco Mindset Podcast.
We've come to the conclusion of this episode of the Narco Mindset Podcast, but your path towards hope, meaning, and redemption continues. For more information and resources to help you on your path towards finding a life built on integrity, honor, and truth, head to JorgeValdezPh.D.com and join our community. We appreciate you joining us for this episode and look forward to helping you find your turning point right here on the Narco Mindset Podcast.